Dan, we're live.
Thanks, Larry, the Liberty Guy. Governor Raimondo said this morning that the hundreds of millions of dollars that the federal government has granted to Rhode Island to provide relief for coronavirus pandemic problems is still sitting unused in our account, refusing to give that money to the businesses or to the children, students in K through 12 who could really use it. And this is our topic today. This is Mike Stenhouse with another session of In the Dugout. And in just a few minutes, we'll be talking to a state representative who's going to be putting in legislation to try to help students. But first, I'd like to show you a policy brief that our center put out earlier this year in June. We followed the lead of our a sister think tank in Pennsylvania, who came up with the idea of these catch-up educational savings accounts. Listen, we know every single student last spring was forced to go to online distance learning in their schools when the schools were shut down by the government. We know those students didn't get the quality education they deserve, whether online or in person, but online, it makes it even more difficult to do your lessons. So they fell behind, which is why we call them catch-up ESAs. Now this fall, it appears like many school districts are again, at least initially, are not going to go back to class, in-person classes, and those students could fall even further behind. So we put out this idea that let's use some of that big pot of hundreds of millions of dollars that the federal government gave Rhode Island. Let's give them to every family in the state who has kids in K through 12 to allow them to catch up by hiring a tutor or after-school enrichment programs or online courses or anything that their parents deem would be necessary to help their children catch up. So that was our policy brief, and here I want to welcome to the show right now Representative Mike Chippendale. He is a Republican from House District 40, which representing citizens from Foster, Gloucester, and Coventry. Rep. Chippendale, welcome to In the Dugout.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, now you know our tradition. We're in the dugout, in the baseball field, so we gotta wear a baseball cap. All right, I'm gonna go with, since we're talking about kids, I'm gonna go with my Little League cap. Edward South Elm with Little League, since we're talking about kids. What do you got for us today, Chip?
Outstanding. Well, I mean, I was unable to be set up by my barber for an appointment, so I'm glad I can get my hair covered right away with a hat. So thanks. Thank God I didn't get set up. I'm wearing my Operation Hat Trick University of Rhode Island baseball cap, and it's out of reverence, of course, for the game itself. And also to recognize our state's flagship public university, as well as the university from which many members of my family have graduated. And to reveal my age, some of the youngsters I coached in T-ball all the way up through are now playing D1 baseball there. So, all around. And it has to do with education, of course, because I want these children who are unfortunately being set back, I want them to have the opportunity to be able to go to URI. And right now I see that opportunity is being put in grave danger.
All right, well, let's talk about that. So we had shown you our policy brief from June, but just last week on September 3rd, your House Republican caucus put out a press conference and policy brief talking about a form of the educational scholarship accounts that we wrote about earlier this month. So why don't you describe what you guys announced last week and what you're intending to do with the legislation?
Sure, and to the point regarding the ESAs, frankly, we wouldn't have as much information available to us that we did had it not been for a lot of the policy papers that the center puts out, as well as your sister organizations across the nation. It was tremendously helpful for us to try to, when we were crafting this legislation. As we always have, we believe that the parents and the family are the best decision makers when it comes to determining the scenario in which a child is best educated. Not every child learns the same way. We've all recognized that by this point in time, and consequently, when we're being constrained to this distance learning, which you articulated very well, a lot of the issues that have arisen from just that short period of distance learning in the spring, which actually has been compounded with all sorts of, there have been a lot of mental health implications, depression, drug use has gone up, teen pregnancies have gone up. All of these things can be traced right back to how the school year kind of closed, and
Yep.
and then how the summer went through. So we want those parents of those school children to be able to use what they know about their child and make the best decision in their opinion with all the information available to determine how their child will be
So,
educated.
so one feature we like about that, and that you picked up on here, that we wrote about, is this is not a one-size-fits-all government recommended approach. Here's how your kid can catch up. You're leaving it to the discretion of each family to decide
Yeah.
how to supplement their own children's unique learning situation.
Exactly. And you know, we recognize that right now we're in a crisis, right? This is going to end, and any policy that's advanced to try to address it now will most probably end when the crisis does. But that being said, we're still in a crisis, and these children still need to be educated. So the menu, if you will, of options that we've made available to the parents, it does exactly that. It offers them the opportunity to choose the best methodology. And we were very thoughtful and deliberative when we crafted this legislation, because we did not, the last thing we wanted was it to become an issue of teachers versus students versus parents versus unions versus towns, or Democrats versus Republicans. We were really working very hard to avoid all of that. And
So to expound on that, we're not talking about educational savings accounts in its traditional and original form that would provide tuition assistance for kids to go to a different school. We're talking about assistance to kids in their current school. We're not asking them to change schools, correct?
well, that is one of the options. So there are three options, Mike. The first option is the parent can embrace distance learning, and many parents, for various reasons, whether it's the health of the child or their general concerns over the virus, may choose to do that. Um, but we also recognize that those children have faced some adversity and may need that extra help, be it a tutor, a music instructor, or perhaps somebody to deal with them with the athletic aspect of, or the physical education aspect of education. And that would potentially require additional funds, not to mention the fact that a lot of families are dealing with remote work. So mom and dad may be working at home, and if you only have two computers, how is Johnny and Mary going to engage in distance learning? So if they need to be able to purchase technology, this money would be made available for them to do exactly that. So in that setting, that would work that way. There's the
Now, how
homeschool.
much money are you talking about per student?
So, you know, I think the state, if we look at the state average, it can fall somewhere between 17 and 18,000 per student. But we know that to provide those services to those children that are at home embracing distance learning, it won't come even remotely close to that. And we could get down into the weeds on each of these, because they are policy issues and they are very wonky, if you will. There's a lot of considerations that go into it. But suffice it to say that there could potentially be some costs that need to be
All right.
offset.
All right. So I'm trying to understand here a little better. So I'm going to show again our policy brief.
Yep.
So in our policy brief, we were just looking, we were recommending something like $500 to $1,000 per qualified student. And with, I can't remember how many, 125,000 students or something like that we have, that would be somewhere between 75 to $150 million. But just at $500 to $1,000 per student, so they could get some supplemental education to their existing school. Are you talking about a potentially higher amount?
I think that would all depend. It would depend on how many children. Well, I mean, the per pupil price wouldn't necessarily change in that venue. But when you have a technological need, if they need to buy laptops with webcams, tutoring, some students will need more tutoring than others.
Sure.
And yes, so that could be an amount that fluctuates. We expect that would fluctuate, and it works with the other modalities we're offering as well. And if I could go on to one of the other options, which is our homeschooling option, where parents may just say, I'm going to keep the child at home and I will do the homeschooling. A certain amount of money will be made available for them to buy curriculum so that they will be able to teach. Again, sporting equipment if they need so for the physical aspect, music, technology, all of those things, so that they would be able to provide that particular modality of education for their child because it works best for them. And then the third option, which is we will allow, or this legislation would allow a child who's in a district that we've deemed safe to open. So we know that there are metrics in place. And right now, as Providence and Central Falls work diligently to get their disease numbers down, right now, unfortunately, they're still a little bit too high to have in-person school. They're the only two districts at this point. But any other district that is deemed safe to open but refuses to, that child, that family will have the opportunity to send their child to another public school in a state, and that district will, just like we do with the Pathways programs now, very successfully, use that same exact funding method to send that child to whichever district has availability and can accommodate that student. So those three options there, two of them would use the ESAs as a vehicle for the funding of additional costs or costs that the parents will incur due to the fact that they're being compelled to stay outside of the normal, I guess, schema of how we educate children.
All right, so to whom then would you make these scholarships available? Your website says to parents of any school that fails to provide an in-person learning despite a state determination it's safe to do so. So you're saying these scholarship accounts would go to any student in a school district that does not open immediately?
Yes, but the way that the ESAs will be managed, and this is partially due to the laws surrounding, obviously, when you're talking about a tax-deferred vehicle for financial distribution, you have to factor in all of those things that the IRS, the feds, and everybody else piles onto those. In order for it to function in this particular legislation, the ESAs are actually going to be set up in the names of the districts, the school districts. So there would be 40 whatever individual ESAs, and the parents would draw from them. That is, again, that's part of the legality and the financial reporting aspect of the ESAs.
So you're not talking about separate ESA accounts for each family? You're talking about one ESA account for each district?
Initially, we had, when we had gone into this, our idea was that it would be specific for the family. But just, again, due to the way that they are legally, the legality surrounding them and the financing surrounding them, it seemed most appropriate, again, considering this could be, at most, a 9-month venture. Set these up, let the districts manage that money. There would be a per pupil average price that is allotted, understanding that some pupils will exceed that, others will not even come close to that. We had to also carefully balance the CARES Act money, because you did mention that, and that certainly is a large element of this entire thing. We were unable to determine that it would be appropriate to use CARES Act in this fashion to send directly to students for education. But
inappropriate?
We believe, based our attorneys, based on our understanding of the CARES Act, yes, it would not be allowable to be used in that fashion. But that's not an issue, because
it is an issue. No,
well,
Chip, it is because I can tell you our entire network, many states are using these funds and they have determined it is highly appropriate for those CARES Act funds. So I would like to have your legal people take a closer look at that, because I can tell you other states have made the exact opposite determination.
And I'm going to just continue to elaborate if I may. So what we decided was the cost of the education of the child will remain in being drawn from funds that come out of the per pupil price that are in the district's hands and managed through the ESAs. The CARES fund, the CARES Act funding would come in place where if a district, for round numbers sake, has $100 in the account to educate all of their children, and they're not able to open, they're struggling, they need to fix their facilities, et cetera, et cetera. This money that could potentially go out of district because students engage in these options could hinder their ability to make the improvements to their buildings and do those things. That's where the CARES Act money would backfill. So any monies that are needed for education would come straight from the per pupil price. We know there's more than enough money there, obviously, because the per pupil price is a calculated number that currently satisfies our educational needs. So what is left after the money's drawn through these other options, if there is a deficit and it's disabling that school from getting up to snuff as far as ventilation and or the other safety elements of this whole thing, that's where the CARES fund money would backfill. So could we say the CARES fund money is going directly to it? We could. I mean, it's going into a different
You're
bucket,
taking a fungible, you're taking a fungible cash route on this. Cash
and
is
again,
fungible.
and again, it is. It's a separate bucket, if you will, but it's still in the district. So that the district's existing bucket of money to fund the children from may run too low for them to make some of these improvements, and that's where the CARES Act money is most appropriately used to make those schools safe for the children to actually physically walk into and be educated face to face like they deserve to be, and like the Supreme Court has said they have every right to be.
Just a reminder, we're talking with Mike Chippendale, representative from District 40 in House, Rhode Island House of Representatives, representing Foster, Gloucester, and Coventry. And we are obviously a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We're here talking with Rep. Chippendale because he's talking about sponsoring legislation that closely resembles some policy idea we put out earlier this year. But since this is campaign season, and since we do need to be even-handed about this, we have invited Mike, Representative Chippendale's opponent, to provide her perspective, or a Democrat perspective, on this. So we hope to be interviewing Linda Nichols soon. I also advise you, if wherever you're watching this, on Facebook or YouTube or on our website, to like, share, or subscribe, depending on where you're watching, so you can be notified of future events. All right, so Representative Chippendale, so yeah, you're definitely taking a little bit of different approach on this than has been taken by other states throughout the country, as far as the way you're structuring the flow of the money. But that's up to you, and that's your thing. Of course, we're for all of the above. We think as many options as possible should be provided to as many parents as possible to empower them to make the best decisions for your kids. So,
and certainly,
Mike, why wouldn't we offer this to every student? Because every student fell behind last spring, and why just those where schools don't open in person this fall?
That's strictly based on the disease metric. So if we believe, I mean, we believe, and as does the Department of Health, who ultimately will make this determination, we believe that the students who are in a district that has been determined unsafe due to the disease level should not be able to go into a district outside of that district because of the health issues. That, I think, would be shut down by the Department of Health immediately. You know, if we're saying,
but what we're saying is every student didn't go to school last year, last spring.
Absolutely,
and every student fell behind somewhat.
These options,
regardless of what happens this fall. So why don't we include every student?
Okay, and I need to maybe rewind a little bit, because I don't think I said this. The students who are in Providence and Central Falls, which right now are the only ones precluded from in person, still have these options available to them. So they can embrace distance learning and use the ESA to again get the technology
But
in the
students in
extra
Cranston
tutoring.
wouldn't be able to do that?
No, any district in the state would be able to do that.
All right.
Yeah,
Oh,
any
so you are
district.
making it available to all students then?
Absolutely. Of
Oh,
course,
okay,
the only option that is not available to all students is the traveling from one school to another
Oh, okay,
school outside
gotcha,
of your district. And that's,
gotcha.
again,
Okay.
that's based on the disease metric. I think it's important to also point out, I, we've had furloughs, and unfortunately there was an outbreak in the state house of the virus, and it was essentially shuttered for quite a few weeks recently. And so legislative proposals have piled up, and we just received the actual first draft of this legislation this morning. I haven't even read it. It happened moments before you and I engaged on this Zoom call. So once we go through that, there will most probably be edits that we make. This we don't even know when we're going to be in the State House to introduce it and to sign it and get
Well,
sponsors.
yeah, we're going to save that for the end. I'll get back to that in a second.
Sure.
So let me ask you this. So have you reached out to either, Democrats on this? Is there going to be any bipartisan support? Our school choice legislation years ago was sponsored by, the lead sponsor was a Democrat, Ray Hall, who's still in the House
Sure.
of Representatives.
Sure.
Left wing or left leaning liberals like Ray Rickman on this show a few months ago openly endorsed the idea, as long as we weren't using them for tuition to go to other schools, private schools, and to leave the public school system. So I think you'll find some bipartisan support out there. Have you had a chance to measure that yet?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, and most encouraging has been the response from constituents. Parents are as you as a parent as well, Steny, you understand what it's like when our kids are in school when they were that age. It's concerning. Now throw in this virus. We've received great response. They love the idea. They love the options, but more so, and understanding that we are, or we were in a primary season, we still are in an election season. The encouragement we've gotten from our Democrats has been, our Democratic colleagues rather, has been much greater than any other school choice or other alternative to education that we've ever proposed. But it's all been in the background, because publicly, as you know, it's very difficult at times to get some of our Democratic colleagues to openly advocate for this type of fluidity within the school system. And again, I think it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are in an emergency, and regardless of your political affiliation, you have to see what you must be observing, what we're observing as far as the detrimental impact on children. And so those colleagues who are Democrats that I am friends with have reached out to me and said, "Attaboy, this is great. And, when we get back in, hopefully we can make something like this happen." But unfortunately, election seasons get in the way of people openly speaking how they feel sometimes.
So before we get back to that, which will be our final topic, also, so by using the school districts and bank accounts, and even if you did it the way we had proposed with the educational savings accounts, which, by the way, per family, for each family, using it just like a SNAP card, we have SNAP
Right.
cards in this state with the help of the treasurer's office. They're pretty easy to set up and to direct the funds into that, so it's done in other states. It's not a hard concept to do now. We have the technology, we have the experience. But either way, you're going to need support, I would think, from Rhode Island Department of Education on this. Have you had any contact or any indication about how they feel about this?
We, without getting too deep into the discussions, we have reached out to our partners in government. Obviously, the Rhode Island Department of Education, or RIDE, as I will refer to them herein, has a huge role to play. They understand, first and foremost, the funding formula, but just the funding and the burden, the financial burden on school districts. So we'll be relying a lot on them to provide us formulaic guidance on, a blanket allotment for technology, for a laptop. We may even be able to take advantage of the state's MPA, the master purchasing agreements that we have with vendors, and say, hey, if you go to ABC Computer Store, they will provide your child with the laptop, and they just directly bill the state. There are a number of things we can do along those lines. That is a bit further down the road in the process, right? We will be introducing a piece of legislation that will touch all four corners of this proposal and will appropriately assign responsibilities where they belong. As it pertains to education of children and those metrics or those figures of running the school and the per pupil costs and what it may cost for these other services, we will be relying on RIDE's guidance. And frankly, that's their job.
Right, but they have to have an open mind to it. They, without their recommendation, they could easily kill legislation. I interviewed the new education commissioner many, many months ago. And while she's a lovely woman, obviously someone passionate about education of our children, when I discussed with her various forms, and this was before we had come up with this Catch Up ESA idea, I was surprised how unaware she was of any of these school choice options, even the corporate tax credit scholarship that, of course, everyone knows about charter schools, which is a form of school choice as well. So I just, I don't know that they appreciate, I don't know that they would risk upsetting the teachers' unions who seem to control so much of what they do. So I hope they will be on board with you. She seems like an open-minded woman, but I was surprised at how unaware of these kinds of options she was in particular. I can't speak for anyone else at the department.
Like I said earlier on, we really did put an emphasis on trying to make this as apolitical as possible, because again, we understand this is a temporary solution to a temporary problem. Now it's embracing something that's been around. It's that certainly we've been forwarding as an idea, but it's also been around in a functional sense, as you are well aware, in several states. So it's not as if we're coming up with some radical new idea. We're essentially taking
that's correct.
what we have always
an idea that is
for.
enjoyed bipartisan support in many other states. Yeah,
absolutely. So this really, it would be a shame, and you did reference political power of persuasion as far as how far bills get. It would be a shame to see that become what determines whether or not parents will be allowed the opportunity to make the decision as to what the best way for their child to be educated is. Yep. Because at the end of the day, and I don't want to sound like some sappy commercial or anything, it truly is about these children getting the best education in the best educational setting.
And it's out of your control, this last topic.
Sure.
These children are having these problems now.
Yes.
They have an immediate need. They are falling behind and fell behind last spring and now. We put out our policy brief in June, fully expecting that the General Assembly would be responsible, would reconvene as they promised sometime over the summer to pass the budget, and might consider legislation like this and other emergency, I think you used the term, and this is emergency legislation, but given the way things are going now, it doesn't look like they're coming back into session before the elections. It looks like they'll probably just wait until next year. Then by the time you put in the legislation and make the sausage, I mean, these kids are going to have fallen even further behind. So they need this help now. Is there, I mean, I know that's not your problem because this cowardly General Assembly leadership refuses to do their job, but how do you respond to that?
Well, first, you're absolutely right. If we're not in that building to make decisions, then decisions are not being made. It is my opinion, and you express something similar, that a lot of this is being driven by election politics. And again, it's shameful that that's the case. Look, if I have to advance an initiative and I believe that initiative is needed, as I do with this one, and that were to cost me my election, well, I went down dying on the right hill. that's the right hill to die on. I wouldn't have an issue with that. Unfortunately, not all of my colleagues feel that way. They rather hide in their bunkers, wait for the election to pass, and then make the hard
Well,
decisions
here's an
afterwards.
idea that will relieve them of that burden and address the situation now. I had this one prepared for you. You ready for this one?
Excellent. Absolutely.
Since we're being ruled by tyranny right now anyway,
Yep.
since the General Assembly has abdicated any responsibility in its role in government while this pandemic is still on, why not petition the governor? Since I have, and I can promise you that this is true, that other states have looked at this legally. These CARES Act funds are appropriate and legal for this purpose. Petition the governor to provide this money now by executive order. She's done everything else, goddammit, by executive order. It will relieve you guys of having to vote on it. It'll relieve your colleagues from having to piss off the teachers' unions. And implore her to assign that money, which is under her control now. I don't even think you need legislation for this. What do you think of that idea?
Well, I think that has been happening. There has been a lot of screaming about, hey, release these funds. In general, we do believe that she is jealously clutching these in the anticipation that she will use them to balance our budget. There have been national indications that states will not be bailed out because they were poorly run. All of these things point to,
like Rhode Island.
I think that Rhode Island falls squarely into that poorly run. I don't want to go so far as to say they're all Democratic states that are poorly run, but the majority of them certainly are, and Rhode Island is one of them. I don't want to see this crisis being used as a way to bury bodies from the past. In other words, bad management, bad fiscal management, and poor choices. I don't want to see that slate wiped clean with federal money simply because it's there. So just the fact that that money available to us, and it hovers somewhere around $1 billion, we're seeing a jealous clutching onto that money. You are absolutely
and
right.
Our kids can't wait. This is their lives. This is their future at stake. They can't wait for this politics to play out. They can't wait 5 years in Providence for a 5 to 10 year reform plan to take hold. They need help now. So let's get this governor to help the kids to unclutch that money and to just do it by executive order. Gosh darn it, why not? She's done everything else that way.
And you know what? I'm not even sure she would need an executive order. She might be able to just do it. When these children were sent home in the beginning, early March, because of the virus, we knew they weren't coming back. At that point, we knew the schools were shut down. And then throw in the summer. They had 6 months worth of time to be working on ventilation, to be working on all of these issues that now suddenly are deal killers for a lot of districts. And they're saying, well, we can't open because whatever, we don't have enough windows or what have you. Well, what were you doing for the past 6 months? And why was the governor not providing these schools with the money they needed to provide safe?
Well, she said it on the radio this morning. She's saving the money so she can keep spending it on all the special interest promises we made. But my question is, what the heck can be more of a special interest than our kids' education and their future? There's a more important special interest than that.
The cynic in me says that those children don't help further her political career, so therefore they're not really in play.
Bingo, you nailed it.
I'm being cynical, but pragmatic, I think, at the same time. It's unfortunate that that's the situation. We're seeing a lot of worthwhile avenues where this money could be legitimately spent that are being ignored. And it's shameful. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm going on some hyperbolic rant and using cliches, but she should be ashamed. We are neglecting a generation of children that, frankly, the damage being done in these 2 school years, last year's truncated year and then this year's probably full year, the damage we're seeing done there is going to reverberate for decades in society, for decades. And how do we overcome that? That in and of itself will become a financial challenge in the future, because we really are putting these kids at a disadvantage to the extent that they just will not be able to keep up with their peers on the bookends, whether they went before them or came after them and didn't have to deal with this virus. This will be a lump of children in the middle that are stuck. And my heart hurts thinking I mean, knowing many of children who fall into that age group through friends and their children, and just in general, again, as a parent, you know how hard it is on a child. Under normal circumstances, it can be very difficult. Never mind all of this other, everything else that's going on with masks and dividers and rules and standing this far away. And these children are being irreversibly harmed. We have to do everything in our power to try to reverse that, to try to mitigate it, and to try to stop it from continuing. And the fact that the governor is not willing to participate in exactly that is nothing short of shameful.
All right, Mike Chippendale, thank you for joining me in the dugout today, for being a sport and wearing your cap. We'll look forward to hearing from your opponent, Linda Nichols, in the near future. And I remind our viewers to like or subscribe if you're watching on Facebook. This really important video. Well, the House Republicans today or last week proposed freeing up money to help students catch up because of the lost in-classroom time they've suffered last spring, and many will suffer this fall at least as well. Thank you for being with me and in the dugout, Rep. Chippendale.
Thank you very much, Mike.
We're in the dugout. This is Mike Stenhouse, and it's time to play ball for me, but we'll see you next game. Take care.